What's up, everybody? So we have a massive game coming up on Sunday, Packers versus Bears. And today I wanted to bring on Brian from Packers coverage over on Instagram to discuss this game. I already did a preview earlier in the week, but I thought it'd be fun to talk to another Packers fan and hear what he's thinking as we move into this game. So how are you doing, Brian?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be back.
Yeah, and I'm glad to have you back. I feel like when was the last time we talked? A few weeks ago?
It was right after the Panthers lost, which now that just feels like a blip on the radar. But we had plenty to talk about then. But I think we have more to talk about now. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to get into it.
that was a much different stage we were in there. Now beating the Lions, much better position currently. But this should be a really fun game. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but for so long, it's felt like these Packers Bears games, they've still been fun. I mean, any Packers game is fun, but they haven't really been meaningful just because the Bears haven't really been good for a while. And this one, I'm incredibly excited for this game just because with the actually playing good football, it's like this is such a massive game, not only NFC North, but even for, like the NFC playoff seeding with the Bears being number one right now. So just overall, how are you feeling about this Bears Packers rivalry now that it actually is like meaningful?
It's really exciting, man. I mean, obviously, as Packers fans, we're more than okay with and probably prefer the Packers to just kind of, handle business as usual. Like, I'm not going to complain if the Bears are bad and we can kind of just not worry about them. But there's really no denying the increase in excitement and energy around a game that actually matters. I mean, I would say this is the first game with like really high stakes since 2013 when a trip to the playoffs was on the line. And I mean, this is the most energy I've felt leading up to a game in a long time. I mean, Bears fans, I'll give them a little bit of credit. This is probably the only nice thing I'll say in this video, but I'll give them props, man, for a team that has lost 11 of their last 12 to the Packers. They still bring the energy and show up, as opposed to, I don't know, a fan base like the Jets where it's like they may as well, they're kind of just tuned out. So I give them a small hat tip for that. They're really bringing the energy this week, and it's like you just feel this urgency around, like, okay, now that the stakes are really high around this matchup, this win is way more important than any Packers Bears game in a long, long time. So it's fun stuff.
So true. Yeah, I feel like especially with it being at Lambeau Field, this could be one of those like classic Packers Bears games where I feel like it's going to be a pretty close game. I think it could be a really good game. And just looking, I mean, I know that right now Bears fans are definitely more confident than they've ever been, and I would say rightly so. They're the number one seed in the NFC. But just based on how this Bears team has played and where they're sitting right now, do you think the Bears fans are too confident right now? Like when we look back at the end of the season or the playoffs, will we look back at this time and say, wow, like the Bears were actually this level of team? Or when the season ends, where we'll be like, okay, sort of like the Vikings a few years back where they have a dominant regular season, just go out, pretty early. How do you? So first off, are the Bears fans too confident? What do you think?
I think there's two ways to kind of frame that question. So, from a literal sense, maybe a little. Like when I look at their schedule, there's no denying that what they did against the Eagles was just a legitimately impressive win. I don't think there's any point in trying to kind of put an asterisk next to that. That was a very impressive win, even if the Eagles aren't the Eagles of 2024. But when you look at their resume, they played the Giants close. They played the Steelers close without Aaron Rodgers. They almost lost to the Vikings a second time. It came down to a game-winning field goal. And it's not to, it's not about comparing resumes, but it does feel like, okay, you played a lot of close games that could have gone one way or the other. So um, there is a little bit of like, it's like they earned the one seed. It's like no one can take that from them. And I don't think it's the job of Packer fans to sit here and say, oh, well, they're overrated, this and that. Um, I think maybe they're a little too confident. Like, I don't know if they're as good as their record and seeding suggests, but I heavily prefer Bears fans as a Packers fan to come into this game confident rather than, I've seen a little bit from some, prominent Bears, voices on the internet, kind of this mindset of, well, we're playing with house money, and it's you guys who have everything to lose and we have nothing to gain, or we have everything gain and nothing to lose. And it's like, that's not a mindset I'm a fan of. Like, I would rather them puff their chest out and be a little too confident and kind of not hedge against a potential impending loss. So to give you the short answer to that long ramble, I think they're a little too confident, but they should be. They're the number one seed. that, I mean, you can go years without seeing your team at top of the standing. So if it's even for 1 week, they should be confident. That's the energy I want going into this game from Bears fans.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you can, of course, look at different things and say they're not as good as their record shows. There are definitely a few things you look at there. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, who's winning the games, who's winning close games, and they've been really good in close games, even playing some teams that you may look at and say, oh, they should have beaten them by more points. They're still winning the games. They're still the number one seed in the NFC. So that's why I think that, the Bears fans' confidence right now, totally justified. If the Packers were in the exact same position, let's say the point differential isn't great. With the Bears right now, it's like +6. The Packers, I think, are about +68 around there. So the Bears haven't been dominant like in the ways in that they've won, but they've won. I mean, they won more games than the Packers, and at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. So I have no problem, with the Bears going around being incredibly confident because they've definitely earned that right. Now, I don't think they're going to beat the Packers at Lambeau Field, so I guess I would say that if they think they're going to win, that would be slightly too confident. Not that they can't beat this team. I just think that this Packers team is starting to heat up at just the right time. Jordan Love is starting to heat up, and I just think that after beating the Lions, being in Lambeau Field, there's just going to be so much energy in there, and I think they can get some momentum and really, I mean, I think they could really, take this one against the Bears. But I have no problem with finishing off there. No problem with the Bears being confident in this one. One thing I
Yeah.
thought was pretty interesting, looking at the offseason when Ben Johnson decided to bring up Matt LaFleur in his press conference, and he's sort of like, smiling a little when he says it, like he likes to beat Matt LaFleur twice a year. And some people are thinking, oh, maybe they're sort of friends, and he's sort of just taking a little jab at LaFleur, and it turns out no. So he just sort of brings up Matt LaFleur there. And it seemed like in the week, in different interviews with players, some reporters were bringing it up, trying to, see what the Packers are thinking about that regard. And it seemed like Matt LaFleur sort of brushed it off, didn't really answer it from what I saw. But then yesterday, Packers offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich did say a little. He said, "You take it personal for sure. I'll just leave it at that." So I think it's probably is being talked about within the Packers, trying to bring up things that, give you a little more motivation, which I think makes this game even more interesting. But do you think that Ben Johnson, saying he kind of enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year, do you think that's going to affect how Matt LaFleur, approaches this game, how he calls this game with that sort of jab directed his way?
It better. If you're Matt LaFleur, look, I understand that he's kind of giving the safe, I guess you could say, politically correct answer, and I think he's handling it the right way in front of the media. But this is a hyper competitive league, and I want a hyper competitive coach. And if that doesn't motivate Matt LaFleur, I don't know what will, or I don't know what should. I mean, I've kind of already given my thoughts on that comment as a whole. I think it's pretty funny that it was one of the first things Ben Johnson said, despite not actually knowing Matt LaFleur. Right away, kind of having to take jabs at the Packers, but it was. I do love that in spirit of the rivalry, though, in a vacuum, and yeah, I mean, I I think it does, and I think it should. And if it doesn't motivate Matt LaFleur, then I don't know what will. Like I want him to. That should be bulletin board material, and it sounds like it is from what Adam Stenavich, who's not the head coach, so there's a little bit less of a spotlight on what he says. I think that is probably a better reflection of how Matt LaFleur and the locker room are feeling. So, yeah, I mean, I will be running that quote all over the place if the Packers hopefully win. So, it gets me fired up. So it better get Matt LaFleur fired up.
Yeah, it definitely adds to this rivalry, which I feel like is fun about rivalries when, like, people actually, the guys going against each other actually have things to say. It definitely makes things more interesting. And I think if Matt LaFleur had said that yesterday, I mean, this game would be even like the hype for this game would reach another level. I did see the Adam Sinovich information, getting out there a little bit as well. And you'd assume, as you said, that Matt LaFleur probably thinks the exact same thing. And most times in these, press conferences, coaches keep these type of things to themselves, which does make it more interesting that Ben Johnson brought up Matt LaFleur in that conference. So I think that I just wonder, because looking at this game initially, I was thinking to myself, this Bears team isn't the same level of I'd say quite as aggressive and quite as dominant as the Lions offense had been. I mean, they put up like 44 points last night as well, but 44, 45, whatever it was. So I was thinking maybe in this game, Matt LaFleur, he's sort of nervous about throwing turnovers, nervous about because the Bears forced so many turnovers that he would come in maybe a little bit more less aggressive and just try to play it safer. But then I just feel like, 4th and 2 in close type games, he's going to have that running through his head, like Ben
Yeah.
Johnson calling him out, and he's going to be like, I just feel like he may be more emotional in this game, which may help. It may help. I guess that could hurt you at the same time
Well,
if you're going off your emotions, but it may help in those moments.
yeah, and if you're Matt LaFleur, I would hope that he can look at his own kind of, what he was able to do against the Lions, where I think we would all agree that was his most aggressive game plan of the year, and it really worked out. So, and that was a tough road environment. Like the Lions on Thanksgiving, like they don't. I mean, they showed up for that game. I'm sure. I know they wanted to win that game, as they should. So, I would hope that he's able to kind of replicate that strategy and energy against the Bears. I mean, this is not a game to come out not swinging. I mean, I'm hoping the Packers are able to come out there and set the tone because otherwise, as we saw with the Bears against Philly, then they will.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Now, looking at this Bears offense, how concerned are you about how good this Bears offense is?
I'm taking the Bears offense seriously. I mean, it's not there's nothing really flashy about this talking point, but they were able to dominate the Eagles in the trenches. Their run game looked incredible. And I'm a big believer in kind of the blueprint the Eagles had last year when they won the Super Bowl. They dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and the Bears are doing that particularly well on offense right now. So, right after losing Devontae Wyatt, kind of one of the Packers' biggest pieces in the run game, that's kind of my key to success for the Packers. They have to be able to not only not let the Bears control the pace of the game through the run game, but, kind of force Caleb Williams to throw. That's not me calling out Caleb Williams. I'm just saying if the Bears' strength is one thing, make them do something else. So I'm not shivering in my boots over the Bears offense, specifically Caleb Williams. I know we're going to talk about him in a sec, but um, they are more than capable of kind of, bringing it to any defense in the league as they showed last week. So I'm taking them seriously.
Yeah, and the one thing about them that like I would say if the Bears won this game, I would say that they are able to get their running game going just like they did against Philly. And so that's where for me, I mean, the biggest thing here is shutting down the run. And I think the Packers can do it. It's not like this Packers team has only excelled against, bad running games. They shut down Jahmyr Gibbs for the most part against the Lions. And the game before he had, 200 plus yards, and they held him, I think, to 68 rushing yards. So I have a lot of confidence in this Packers defense. And I think that they'll be able to contain the running game enough. And I think the big thing here is if the Packers can get up to an early lead, sort of how you were talking about, force Caleb Williams to throw, I do think that gives the Packers a better chance just because their defensive line, Micah Parsons, if you can just allow him to do what he does best and get teams into, more pass heavy situations, that's where the Bears don't want to be in this game and where I think any team playing the Packers doesn't want to get down because then you have Micah Parsons just going crazy. So, but the Bears do have a very good offense, and I don't think it's, just a fluke or, they're not actually that good. I think they've shown that they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. One of the best run blocking units in the NFL. I mean, if Jordan Love had this run blocking and the Packers had this run blocking, this offense would be the best offense in the entire NFL. I think that Jordan Love is sort of propping up some weaknesses there on the offensive line. But staying with this topic, when it comes to Caleb Williams, like how much does Caleb Williams scare you?
Uh, I think my generalization just now about the offense also applies to Caleb Williams. Not terrified, but taking him seriously. I think he's kind of demonstrated that he's an NFL quarterback. I mean, he is tremendous. He's a tremendous escape artist. He has those flashes of throws that are just unbelievable. I think I feel about Caleb Williams how a lot of teams probably feel about Jordan Love. You don't go into a matchup against the Packers excited that you're playing Jordan Love, but I don't think people are terrified of him either. Like I think when you game plan against the Packers, the central focus isn't oh dear, we have to stop Jordan Love. And that's not to say it shouldn't be. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you just said as well regarding Jordan, where he's kind of propping the rest of the offense up. He's been the best quarterback in the league under pressure. So I'm not comparing Caleb to Jordan in terms of how I see them, in terms of how talented they are or how much of a threat they are. But that's kind of how I feel about Caleb Williams. I think like I said earlier, I prefer that we're able to stop the Bears' run and kind of force him to throw. And if he's able to, play incredible and just make a bunch of, incredible throws that are well defended, then so be it. But I think the Packers' best option from a defensive game plan is still try to get the Bears to throw the ball. News came out right before we started recording that Rome Odunze is also out for the Bears. So,
Oh
that's
yeah, I saw that.
one less weapon on offense and one more reason to try and make the Bears throw.
Yeah, and I think that like the situation Caleb is in with this offense, it's a perfect situation for him just because you've Ben Johnson, incredible play caller, and when you have a running game this good, it makes things a lot easier on the quarterback, run a lot of play action, and because I mean Caleb Williams for the most part, he's been good at not turning the ball over. So if you have a defense forcing a ton of turnovers, you have one of the best running games in the NFL. As a quarterback, it's almost like, okay, just don't mess things up here. Don't throw a ton of turnovers. And I mean, the Bears have shown that even with Caleb Williams, I wouldn't say he's playing as a, top tier quarterback. You look at his passer rating, it's like around 22nd. You look at a few other things like his completion percentage is pretty low. He still, I would say at times struggles with accuracy, but he's still incredibly talented. You can never, you know, just totally forget about him because he can break away from the pocket, make some big plays and big moments, and win you games. And when they're in all these close games, he can definitely come alive in certain moments. Even if altogether, I wouldn't say it's elite type quarterback play, but he's doing enough. And so I wouldn't say he scares me, but I'd say he's a good quarterback. I'd say he's about
Yeah,
average.
backed by Ben Johnson, an elite offensive line, and a solid amount of weapons on offense, he's more than enough. Like he's not. I don't think the Bears are asking him to do a ton right now, but in situations where he is asked to extend the play or make a really hard throw, he's proven he can do that, and he's not super consistent yet. He hasn't flashed like that superstar MVP caliber play yet, at least from my perspective. But he's right on the cusp of that, and he's like I've said probably 5 times now. You have to take him seriously.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, especially in the next couple of years, I assume that as he stays with Ben Johnson, that he'll probably get a lot better as he continues to develop and grow, and as they have that offensive line. So now moving to the Packers, the other side of the ball. I think we all of us Packers fans were really happy to see Matt LaFleur be aggressive, really allow Jordan Love just to really take things over in that game, going for it a ton of fourth downs. I mean, Dontavian Wicks played incredible. That was probably his best game, and the Packers end up putting a lot of points. So, do you think the Packers can have that same type of performance here against the Bears at Lambeau Field?
I think it's possible. I'm expecting. I mean, I've already seen it, and I expect the offense to continue clicking. But uh, are you asking me if I think this is going to be like a dominant win for the Packers?
I'd say more so offensively. Like, do you think they'll put up 30 points? Do you think that it'll be that type of offensive performance, or do you think it'll be more like you know, a little less lower scoring?
I think this is going to be a really close game. I think I could see both teams kind of in like the upper 20s. Um, and I expect the Packers offense to be clicking, but I see this as a game where we when it comes to divisional football, it's always closer than it should be. I think the Packers being favored by 6 in Vegas just as a measuring stick, I think that tells you a lot about some of the things we were kind of saying about, well, you look at the Bears' schedule. Are they really like a 1 seed caliber team? Are they as good as their record indicates? And I think that spread kind of tells you a lot of the story because all the data in the world backs that. But I just expect, because there really might not be a team in the NFL who wants to beat another team as bad as the Bears want to beat the Packers. And that's like, and rightly so. And that's kind of like a superpower that, you know, I think the Packers offense can play really well, and I still think the game will be close. It's really hard because you just never know this Packers offense. Sometimes they come out and right away are like, oh no, it's going to be one of those games. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's going to be the type of game where the Packers come out and are, extremely conservative, running on second and long, things like that. But I also think that the Bears are just going to be so motivated to win this game that I think they will play at minimum well enough that it's not like the Packers hang 40 on them. So
Hmm.
I know I didn't kind of directly answer your question on the offense. I just think there's so many variables at play here where even if the Packers show up, I think it's going to be a fight and I think it's going to be close. So yes, I expect the offense to continue playing well, but I'm not expecting like a blowout or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I almost wonder just with Matt LaFleur, because you could hear after the game last game, because he knew how good the Lions are, like if they convert on their fourth downs, then you really do have to go for it on fourth down and, keep pace with them. And so clearly the Packers came in with that mindset and they played like that. And I do feel like they'll play it a little safer if I had to guess, just because I mean, Matt LaFleur talked about the turnovers the Bears forced. Jordan Love talked about it. So I almost feel like Matt LaFleur's like, you can't turn the ball over, Jordan. You cannot turn the ball over because of how many turnovers they forced. And I mean, looking at this Bears defense though, they've really been propped up by their turnovers. And like looking at some of their other stats here, they're 25th in points allowed, 27th in yards allowed, and they allow the third most yards per play. And so I think a lot of it comes down to, can you play clean football? But I would rather the Packers not sort of get back to playing so safe that Jordan's like not really pushing the ball down the field because he doesn't want to throw a pick. I feel like the Packers are good enough and Jordan Love is good enough to where teams need to be responding to you, not you being, concerned about them picking it off. Of course, you should play clean football. The Bears are really good at it. You don't want to turn the ball over. No doubt about that. Not that you should play careless, but I just think when you have, I think Jordan Love is really moving into being an elite type quarterback. I would say that if he keeps playing like this and into the playoffs as well, that he may get into that tier. I just feel like you need to keep allowing him to do that. But I do think the Packers will put up a lot of points in this game. And I guess that'll move us to the final score prediction. So what's your score prediction here?
Um, I'm gonna say real quick. I just want to respond to what you said.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope you're wrong about Matt LaFleur having that mindset of like not turning the ball over because I don't doubt like Jordan Love will push the ball down the field if they let him. Don't put him on a leash because I feel like if there was some way to correlate how much Jordan's on a leash and how well the Packers offense does, I feel like the more you let him play, the better results we've seen. I think he's coming into his own, and I really hope Matt LaFleur trusts him. But uh, I'm gonna say the Packers win this game 28-27.
Oh, really close.
Yeah.
Come down to a field goal or something like that.
I honestly, my gut tells me that we're heading for something like that again.
That would be sweet. I have the Packers winning 27-20, so 7 point game, but I could totally see it being like a 1 point game. It would almost be like a shame if one team came in and blew out the other team, just because I feel like we need to have like fourth quarter at Lambeau, like close game, big moments. I mean that'll be great. The one thing about this game is the fact that if this was like the last game between them this season, I feel like it would be even more meaningful. Which not that it's not meaningful, but whoever wins this one, if the other team wins the next one, it's almost like okay, it'll come down to the rest of the games that both teams play, and so no doubt that this is a big one for like the NFC playoff battle.
Yeah, well, I like that you have the Packers scoring 27 because it seems like they win every time that happens.
Yeah,
But no, yeah, I feel like it's crazy that we're doing this again in 13 days. I mean, you already know the reactions immediately after the game. The losing team's fans, oh, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks, and the
yeah,
winning team's fans will. Uh, but I think this there's definitely a path for the Packers to still win the North if they lose this game. Bears have tough matchups against the Niners. I mean, they play the Packers again, and they had one other tough game that's escaping my mind that's still on their schedule. But just given that the Packers are back a half a game and that this is at Lambeau, I would say within the scope of the season, not the rivalry as a whole, there's a little bit more pressure on the Packers to kind of to show up for this one.
yeah, definitely with it being at home, because it's like you also would like to go into the playoffs, hopefully get a home game and not go in and have to play on the road.
Yeah, that would be the Packers certainly have a full plate of challenges ahead if they don't win this game, but I think they will.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a 9-3-1 Packers team and you know end the season off well.
I am really hoping. I say this. I said this before the Eagles game, but I really mean it this time. This is the game that I just really, 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 really want the Packers to win. Like I feel like I have to go out there and play this weekend. That's how much energy is around. And I would. If Matt LaFleur calls me, I'll be sure to get on the first flight.
Suit up.
Yep.
What position would you play?
How can you answer anything but quarterback? Can you that would just be so cool. But now we're living in fantasy land now. Never gonna happen. That's why I'm on the mic.
Yeah, same. All right, well, let them know where they can follow you if they want to check out more of your stuff.
Yeah, guys. Follow me on Instagram at Packers Coverage. Also on TikTok, Threads. Got a newsletter in the link in my bio where every week I'm kind of recapping the games and stuff like that. Um, all your non YouTube video content, I'm here for you. But if you're looking for good YouTube content, you're already in the best in the game right here on Sideline Scoop. Thanks for having me, man. Really, it's a pleasure as always. Can't wait to come back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun once again. Hopefully the Packers can pull off the win.
Hope so, man.